Hello, everybody. Because it's been a while and we're going through a pretty intense time right now with regards to everything that's going on. So if anyone needs guidance with regards to, how to support you emotionally with the energy, sometimes we do like a quick healing on here as well. So if that's necessary for you, I'll be guided to do that and you can receive a healing right here on the live. But so if you're having a hard time or whatever, like you can ask your questions about anything basically. So, but it's only one question per person. Okay, so one question. You can ask for general guidance as well if you want to. If you don't have a specific question, but you just want to know which angel is around you, which angel is stepping forward, what they have to say, you can just say general guidance. Or if you have a specific question, you can ask that question. The other thing I want you guys to know is that, so 5 minutes before I was guided to come on here, or no, sorry, 5 minutes before I actually came on here, I was guided to come on here before this, but 5 minutes before actually coming on, I received a download, and what the angels told me is to offer a one-on-one session with me for 3 people for only $100. Okay, so it's only for 3 people. $100 to book a one-on-one session with me to support you, to give you even further guidance. And basically, you'll see as we go through the channeling and as we go through this video, like I can go through the questions pretty quickly and a lot of guidance can come through in like a matter of minutes. So you can imagine how much you can receive within an hour, right? So, and that includes healing, all the things. So I'm offering that to 3 people, and the way that you can claim your spot for a session for just $100 is by messaging me. So send me a direct message and let me know that you're interested. You can post in the comments and I can message you. But otherwise, based on what you received today, if you want to expand further, or maybe you're watching the replay and you just...
Hey!
Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, great.
Great. So, also you must say.
Oh, just say Osei. O-S-A-Y. Everybody call me Osei.
Osei. How are you doing?
I'm great. Actually, this came from a property. We have an integrity issue with one of our walls. So I found a contractor who's gonna, start working on it next week so I can open the property back up.
All right. So we're just gonna go right in. I'm gonna ask you some questions about what you're doing. Then we're gonna talk about the coronavirus, which is sort of how you came, how me and you started interacting.
Okay.
And so it'll be sort of a little bit about your journey. And thank you for doing this. Now, do you have anything to promote?
No, I don't have anything to promote at this particular time. But I want to tell you that I'm very thankful for you. I think it was around 2016. It was you, and another young lady on YouTube, and I started following you.
Rochelle. I bet you it was Rochelle.
Yes, but basically, y'all just actually created your own avenue in the whole idea of investing. Now, I talked to a guy who was a millionaire a long time ago, and he offered me a property, but he offered me the advice to stay between 15 and 30,000 when it came to buying investment properties. He said, don't pay no more than 30,000.
Who's this king?
It was so long ago. It was around 2003 or 4 when he gave me that information, and it was just very interesting. And years later, I come upon your YouTube, and that's all that y'all was talking. So basically, that lane that you cut is to help everybody else.
Yeah,
it's very good, and it's dynamic. So yeah, definitely you
awesome.
You're ahead of your time.
I was just going with what, just to me was just a very clear way, but what made me happy were that people listened. Because a lot of people didn't, okay? A lot of the people on, the BP forums and the REI clubs, they were like, what? What neighborhood? Nope. But there were so many people who were like, I know these neighborhoods. I grew up in it. I'm cool. So it was enough of people like us, like you, who did it, that kept me going. And that's just as important, that you guys heard it and didn't get swayed. And it just made so much sense to you. You know what I mean? All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. All right,
Okay.
so I'm just gonna give an introduction. So I'll call you Osei.
Yes.
What's your portfolio look like?
Right now I have 5 properties. I have 2 in Reading, Pennsylvania. I have 2 in Pottstown, Pennsylvania, and I also have a property in Exeter, Pennsylvania. So 1, 2, 3, 4 single family homes and a duplex with a storefront.
Oh, okay. So okay, that was a lot. I'll have you say it, all right?
Well, it's just a property that has a commercial at the bottom and a 3-bedroom up top.
Okay. Okay. All right, we'll go into that. All right. So, let's start on 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. Lisa Phillips with Investing for Rental Properties for Beginners. We have a lovely guest on today, and he has a nice little interesting portfolio, but I met him through the Facebook group Sub 30K Mastermind. Make sure you join. We are an amazing group in there. Anyone who goes in there loves it because we become an instant community, and you know the work we do is bigger than ourselves. What we're creating, it's really supportive. But we're talking about the coronavirus. So this is in mid-March 2020. We are in the midst, right before it starts to ramp up, and you see that exponential growth rate. We're before that. So we saw what was happening in China. We saw what was happening in Italy, France, South Korea, Japan. So we are trying to make sense of our small businesses in the midst of the Dow Jones lost like 30% of its average. Stocks are tanking. So discussions are very fast right now, very furious about managing this when on some of these states the investors are in, you're not even allowed to socialize or go outside your home, okay? So this is crazy. So don't worry, you're gonna make it through it okay, but I just want you to give context of why these discussions are pertinent and why we're putting them out. So with that, it is Osei. Osei is our guest today. Karume, did I get that right? Osei Karume?
Yeah, she got that correct.
Oh, right. And we're just going to talk to him about his portfolio because he said something about how he's handling working with his tenants in a more community-minded likeness because there have been so many layoffs and people aren't working, but we're forced to stay home, right? And so we're really going to get into this. So with that, thank you for coming on, Osei.
You're welcome.
All right. So we can get a chance to get to know you. How'd you hear about the sub 30K thing? I think you mentioned a millionaire or something. And then tell me about the millionaire and then tell me how you sort of stumbled upon this. And then we'll get into the details.
I was talking to a realtor, and this realtor actually was selling portfolios. Okay. And these portfolios came in 6 and 12. So the portfolios actually was anywhere between $250,000 for 6 properties.
Oh, nice.
Up towards $750,000 for about 12,000. I mean, for $750,000
for 12 properties. Okay.
Right, for 12 properties.
Awesome.
So, I got a chance to meet one of the investors. Actually, he was unloading 20 properties. Mm-hmm. And I met him at one of the properties. He walked me through it. And basically, he just wanted to give it to me. He was selling it for $50,000, but at that time, I already bought a property for $62,000 and financed that particular property.
Right.
So, one of the things he was telling me was always pick my properties between $15,000 and $30,000, and told me what to fix up, like the mechanicals. Make sure the mechanicals are good. Make sure the roof is good.
So let's go back to that though. You can't just say it. So what year was this?
This was 2003, 2004.
So I came on talking about this in 2013. So when you heard that, what was your impression? Were you like, oh, well, I'll just go do this? Or you're like, where am I going to find houses like that?
No, since I already purchased a property, I knew there was more out there. So I kept it in the back of my head, but still in the same.
In that price range? Because you bought a $62,000
I'm at
property.
ground zero, so I'm still learning.
Oh, okay. So you had bought a $62,000 property, and he told you buy 15 to 30, and
Right.
you were like, okay, that's cool. So you were like aware that they were out there, especially.
Yes, I was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was aware that those properties were actually out there. So basically, after I purchased the first property, I started looking around. I got in touch with a realtor, and we started looking. And as time went on, there was a very big market of properties between $10,000 and $20,000.
Especially in 2003. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was so many properties. So coming up towards when I first listened to you, I think that was around
2013, 2014.
Yeah, around that time.
So in those 10 years, did you purchase any of those properties?
Those 10 years, what I did was I purchased one property, then I went to build another property. I built the house from the ground up.
Okay.
And I took the house that I was living in, I turned that into a rental. So I was managing two of those properties.
Right. Okay. All right. But you didn't take advantage into the sub 30K thing. You looked, you saw, but you're like, you'd rather just do your own investing strategy.
Right. But not until 2016.
What made you decide to get into that lower price market then versus before?
Well, at that particular time, I had more capital.
Right. It takes time to build it up. Yeah.
Right. True. So I had much more capital. Mm-hmm. So basically I started looking right in that realm, and I actually found 3 properties. One, a single family for $10,500.
Yep.
A commercial / apartment for $17,500.
All right.
And a single family for $20,000.
Can you imagine a whole house, right? A whole entire house.
Yes, and I actually, the good thing about it was these particular properties were in very good neighborhoods.
Okay. I mean, I buy in good neighborhoods too, but you're saying you didn't even have to like look at the crime reports.
Right, I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I think everybody has to live somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you can't choose and control where you live. So one of the most important things for me is, I look at the neighbors. I get to know the neighbors a little bit. I might come around the neighborhood at different times when I know that it's going to be busy, and then I select from that point of view also, what type of community that has developed in that neighborhood.
Right. Okay. All right. So, wow. So it just blew up in 2016. And where are you at now? Some people just, you get 3 or 4 and you're sort of just taking a break, and other people keep going. So are you sort of still looking? Because there's also this idea there where you spend the money, you get your properties, but you have to wait a year or 2 to save money back up so you can start the process again.
Right.
Where are you? Which happens, right? So like there's a saying like money's tight right now. Give me 6 months to a year, because you just have to build up your reserves again. You spent them on this investment, which will pay for itself. But unless it's never ending money, most of us have to take a little time to save again.
Right. For me, I think my next venture is to go into flipping some houses, since I have the experience of redoing these properties. And selecting the right properties that I can actually buy into through either one of the auctions, win it, and within 6 months do a quick turnaround and be able to pull some profits from there.
Do you are you going to be gentrifying neighborhoods, or are you cautious about that?
No. Actually, the neighborhoods that I look at is that are medium neighborhoods that's well established, and I also look at, you know, just like I said, the way the neighborhood is.
Yeah, yeah. So, you came to my attention in the Facebook group. We were talking about, so right now, for everyone out there, regardless of when you're doing it, we're in the middle of a pandemic that we have not seen since the 1819 flu, right? And what's that?
No, I said true.
Right. We haven't seen it. We have past history to tell us how this is going to go. We saw how it was in China. We saw how it was in South Korea. And it's pretty wild. And right now at this moment when we're having this podcast, we are ahead of the curve. So we know what's coming because we are on the same exact trajectory. So we have Italy's trajectory on each day, how many confirmed cases, and it's literally step for step. So we know 7 days from now, we might be at 10,500, but if we keep exactly on step like Italy, it's gonna be 31,000, right? And we only have 53,000 hospital beds as of this moment, right? Like, you know, people are doing the numbers of how many hospital beds we have, and they're like, we're going to be surpassing the number of, capability of the people who will need help in a few months. So they are taking drastic measures, and they're getting more and more drastic every single day. So every day we wake up at this time, it's like, okay, social distancing. The next day, schools are closed. The next day, your job is sending you home. The next day, all government buildings are closed. The IRS is closed. We can postpone our taxes. The next day, it's like bars, restaurants, and social gatherings are closed. And a lot of us are looking around like, okay, so we're just going to go on quarantine and like lockdown for like a good 2 weeks to 4 weeks, right? That's what we're looking at. So of course, people are being sent home from work. They don't have money. Some employers are not letting them get unemployment insurance. Some are, right? So if they get on unemployment insurance, good. But employers don't always like giving unemployment insurance because their premiums will go up. So they'll have to pay more the more they have people get on unemployment, right? So you're in this mismatch where some people can get unemployment where it's not going to replace their salary, but it can keep a roof and food over your head, right? And if you stay home and don't do things, it's enough for you to get through it. And other people can't even get that. And so 47% of Americans, it is well known at this point, don't even have $400 for an emergency. I have family members like that. That's probably why I have such empathy. I swear they're my family members, just so when I talk about financial education, I keep in mind who the real person and what it looks like, right? So that is a real thing. FYI, I just gave that family member $20 for gas. So like, I really understand. And they're older than me, okay? So right now, family, folks, and out there listening, it's crazy. We're pretty much guaranteed we're gonna go into martial law, okay? They're building like temporary quarantine facilities, all right? This is, so when we say that this is every day there is a moving piece, and all of a sudden there's a specter that 7 days from now we're going to start getting the same stories we heard from Italy, China, France, and people not having enough hospital beds, not enough ventilators, right? And so we're worried, we're concerned, and we have houses that some of us have mortgages on, some of us don't.
That is true.
Now, I'm the sub 30K queen. So most of the people I work with, our houses cost anywhere from 10,000 to 80,000 tops, right? So you're looking at a monthly mortgage payment of like nothing to basically, because once it's under 20,000, a lot of people just pay cash, to be honest. Up to 80,000, you might get like a $500, $600 monthly mortgage. Now, when you're in that 30 to 50K range and your mortgage is 350, that's something you can float, right? So a lot of the landlords are like, what are we going to do? How are you handling it? And I noticed Osei, because he had a very interesting take on it. A lot of the investors were like, hey, I want to talk to them and work with them on what they can do, how we can get through this. But a lot were like, hey, my properties are paid off, or the mortgage is loaned. I'll work something out with them where they can either repay or for the next few months, like something can happen. Not indefinitely, but we're definitely throwing out ideas. Our first thing isn't, you should have an emergency fund. If you don't, you're going to get kicked out, because the reality is we go into lower income neighborhoods. They're not the type of neighborhoods where you tend to find 3 months emergency savings, okay? because the poverty level, the wages aren't usually that high. So we're in a very interesting position in the sub 30K mastermind group because we do go in lower income neighborhoods and we do understand the costs and the wages and the service oriented nature of it can mean that, they're probably the 47% that may or may not have the 3 months emergency savings. And a lot of people were like, hey, I have reserves to get through this. I'll work something out, because the conversation was like, I don't want to be taken advantage of, but I can cover it if they can't, right? I think other investors and landlords, when you have a $200,000 house and a $1,200 mortgage, that's not an easy thing to do. So I will say we're going to be unique because we did go low, and there are considerations we have to take more stridently than other people didn't. But Osei mentioned that he taught, he talked to them. And at first, the way he worded it on the Facebook group, it made it seem like, hey, you should have your money. If you don't, you don't. And I was like, well, so if they don't, are you going to evict them? But then he was like, no, actually, this is what I did. So I just want to talk, Osei, in this craziness, with everything going on, tell me how you're handling it. No, you're not trying to evict anybody. I don't think anybody is, because this isn't the time to do it. And anyways, to everyone out there, the courts aren't giving it. The courts are shutting down. The courts are like, no, you're like, even if you wanted to, they're not taking your case. They're not evicting anyone. And that's not just in the places that it's pretty much across the board. They're like, we can't have homelessness. That's going to exasperate the situation.
Right. I think one of the most important things is that with majority of my tenants, I have a good relationship with them.
Yeah.
So when this happened, we did talk about schools closings, job closings, and how we would deal with that. Now, one of the most important things that we talked about was basically we have a shared housing type of situation. So we have we have 4 people in one house actually sharing the house, and basically so we have 4 people that have different jobs. So one person along with myself, if something happens, we can make sure everything's in the house is fine. You know what I mean? Until we actually get through this. So that would be like we finding the resources that's within the community, and also assisting those resources. So if they're not working, they will be out at the churches and the different cluster centers, helping out.
So tell me how, so what did you actually do or talk about? Did you present to them? Did you sort of research things and present it to them? Did you ask them what they knew and then what you knew, and you guys got a list of things? So tell me how those conversations went, because I like that you're saying, no, I mean, I told them that, we already talked, you were proactive. You talked about it. But then you didn't just go, I hope you have everything. You're like, look, these are resources. Okay. Right. And I think that's very proactive. To me, that's leadership. You're leading. You're not being this inactive player. And I think we need more leaders who are tenant centered, but also profit centered. But you can be both.
Right.
But trying to be a little bit more understanding and work with the situation versus going straight to, I guess you just have to leave because I don't care, right? And I don't like that energy. I don't approach any of my tenants with that energy. And I don't, and I don't get that energy back. I approach them with logic and rational, and I'll do this if you do that, and they respond, and so, it's always very reasonable in my interactions with them. So tell me a little bit more about how that conversation came about, what you did and what they did.
Well, for me, relationships are everything. So when I interview my tenants, or when I have conversations with them, we actually build a relationship. So all the resources, or some of the resources they was already using.
And they told you about them, or you already knew, or how did?
Right. Over the months, they told me about different resources that was in the community.
Oh, good. They're like your source of information.
Yes.
Eyewitness 9. All right.
So we got a chance to really sit down and talk about what was going on. The first thing we did was to strategize what is in the community that can be used to our advantage. And then if it came to the point, if they jobs left, you know, what could we do to help the community?
Right, right. So if their jobs left, what they can do to help the community? You mean like the community of people in the
Right.
house? So the house is a community of different
True.
people
True.
who all have their own separate leases with you.
Right.
But you were talking to everybody. Like, how do we help each other? Did you like gather them all in a room? Like, let's talk about it. Did you get them on the phone? How'd that come about? And I love this.
Yeah. Usually 2 times a week I'm at the house. So
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. Twice a week I'm at the house. So we get to talk a whole lot because basically my story with them is one of the tenants. I actually met him when he was homeless and holding a sign, and I asked him, did he want to, you know, work? And he said, yeah, I'd rather work for my money than ask for my money. So one of our properties, we had to do a clean out, and he came and helped. He was a tremendous help in cleaning out the property. But what I found out that at that particular time, him and his girlfriend was sleeping by the river.
Yeah.
They was totally homeless. So basically, until we had everything finished, I let them stay in that property and work. And so,
how did you enforce that? Because sometimes you let someone in and then they start to slack.
I didn't have. I seen them every other day.
So you were there, and you're like, all right, let's get
seen
to
him every other day. Plus, his girlfriend had a job.
Okay.
Yeah, his daughter.
Did they tell you why they did not go to shelters?
In this particular area, they didn't have no shelters for him, so they gave him a sleeping bag.
You know, so
and a tent.
Okay. So they have a little privacy. I know I had met someone here, the person who does my yard. You know, I pay him like $50 to do my yard.
Right.
And I remember I had met him like once, and like the next day he called me, and they were out of their house.
Right.
And for whatever reason, I didn't know him like that. I just met him once.
Right.
And he was like, hey, can you advance me on the money so for next week? So because we're at a Red Rooster Inn. And I said no because I didn't know him like that. And that was just a little too much for a first acquaintance to be calling me up asking me about that. And I remember I took the time. I was like, okay, you know, I'm very spiritual. So I asked my, you know, angels, guardian angels, like, so hey, what do I need to do? And I just got an idea to like look up all these government sources, and I got the phone numbers of different shelters, and I gave it to him. And I don't think they went. And I thought that was very interesting. I was like, do they not consider themselves homeless? So they'd rather do all this other stuff rather than, you know, go. So I was wondering if you maybe got like a, you know, in your case, they just didn't have it. But I just thought that was really interesting. I'm giving them these resources. They didn't take advantage of it. And I'm not saying this is any shade towards them. You know, I'm just wondering, like, I'm the kind of person, I don't have pride like that. So if like there's a shelter, but I didn't know if there was like a reason they don't go to.
No,
it.
in that particular community, the shelter space is very small. Okay. And basically they have a very large community of homeless peoples actually living by the river.
Okay.
So basically on the idea of the shared housing, I actually offered them to come relocate themselves from where they were at and come to Pottstown and help finish up some of the work that we had to do there. And then I would take them to the jobs that's in the area. And the guy, he was very reluctant on doing it. He said, nobody's going to hire me. I have a terrible past. I don't think I can do it. I said, well, let's go up to the employment office and see what we can do.
Okay.
We went up to the employment office. They did his background check, then hired him the same day.
Okay.
So he was very excited about that. And then they actually hired this girlfriend too. So they've been working there since last June. And I think in 2 weeks they're actually gonna get their own apartment.
How many years?
No, they only been there since last June.
Oh, nice.
But they turned their life around in a short time just by, giving them that chance and talking and counseling with them. And, it has been perfect. Also, I have two other people there. One with the same situation that his church called me and brought him in, but he already had a job. So he just didn't have a place to stay.
Okay. So yeah, so tell me, so you're there all the time and you work with the people. So before we go into the community, so I want to go a little bit into the community information you shared and how that went with everybody. And then I want to go into how is running a shared housing. Because a lot of people have in the group talk about it, but not a lot of people specialize. So, but we'll get to that second. So tell me how this discussion went, what was said and what came out of it when you're like, hey, Corona's legit. Things are crazy right now. And how did that conversation go? So they must be all used to you because you're pretty open and willing to give people a chance. So there's definitely a level of trust they have in you to want to follow and listen to what you say, because you've shown that you aren't shallow and you do care and you're willing to take chances and do the work, right? Which is leadership. I love it. All of this is leadership. Like, people think leadership is a title you get. You don't get or win leadership. You are, because you have a strong conviction and you follow through. You're a leader. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, it's not a strong, hateful position, a strong, heart-centered position, a strong, this is right for the country or for this person position. That's all it takes to be a leader. When you care about people other than yourself, and you step forward in that light and make it happen. That's a leader. That is a leader. I'm telling you. So it is. And that's why I'm going to be talking about it more and more about, like, let's not hide who we are. Say we are leaders and we're going to lead the way to, like, ushering in a new way of doing business and promoting it so people can have a model of how they can model it, So yeah, tell me about this coronavirus meeting. What did you call it? The coronavirus meeting?
Nah, one of the biggest things in Pennsylvania, things just start closing. First, it started with schools, closing for 2 weeks, and then one of the tenants, he works for Amtrak, and he said they're shutting Amtrak down. They're shutting Philadelphia down. So it's everybody's bringing information into the house.
Okay.
So we're talking about what what is your boss saying? What is what's your organization is talking about? Oh, we might be closed in 2 weeks. It might be less than that. We have another tenant was like, well, I don't know. I'm gonna have to get on the bus, and I just spend my last bit of money. You know what I mean? So, we talked about, well, you need to get to work. We're going to get you to work. You know what I mean? So we worked out something amongst ourselves to make sure, he has funds for work for for that particular week. And we still don't know what's going to happen with his job, because he said half the people, showed up. So, they're actually talking about, not opening up next week.
And honestly, that was the same job at our between me and my ex, because we have a daughter that we split custody. So what'd your job do? He told me not to go back Monday. We don't know if we're going to go back Tuesday. Now they just said we're just going to be home and we're not working. Right. So at our level and income, we have 3 months emergency, right? But we're at we're at the higher level of income. It's not the highest, it's just you make 70 plus a year, right? There is some wiggle room if you wanted to have a 3-month savings plan, right? Not saying everyone who makes that does, but you can. It depends on your lifestyle.
Yeah, I think for each for the properties, that is important to make sure you have some reserve.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That is your job.
Right. But for our situation, I look at it, this way. I mean, push come to shove and they shut everything down, we have enough to make sure that, the particulars with the the electric, the water, and things like that is good. And then being as though that we are into the communities and with the churches and different things like that, we'll make sure that the house as a group, is sustainable.
So what were some solutions that came out of it? So someone was like, this church will offer free food, or like, can you give us specifics?
They have 3 or 4 churches in that particular community that hands out food, plus a place called the Cluster. So basically, when they're not receiving some of the food from near, my whole thing is giving back to the community. So if that comes to the point, they, some of their rent will come out of some of the service that they give to others, and churches are doing a whole lot in that neighborhood. So
perfect.
We want to reciprocate, some of the fortunes that we have for ourselves, and use that for others, in with our hands, with our time.
So some of them are saying that they will so they said they will be happy to volunteer, or did you urge it?
Yes.
Did they come up with the idea? How did it come up?
No, that was solution based when we were talking. Some of the things.
I don't know what that. Can you? I don't know what you mean. Can you sort of break down when you say solution based? So how did it come about that you guys were like, hey, were you like, hey, do you want to volunteer, or did they say they would do it? So I'm just trying to get this.
Oh no! Well, the same places that they use their service, those are the places that they would have no problem in volunteering. You know what I mean? So and each one of them are in the community and receive some services.
Right.
And, I think that, it's important to, give back to those same services when we can.
So you said you sort of go like introduce the give back because they were using the services, but you're like, hey, maybe we can go and volunteer and give back.
Yes.
Okay. And they were on board with it?
Oh, sure.
Okay. What other community resources did you guys come up with during these talks?
Like I said,
so that was for food, definitely, but for money or.
Well, for money within itself, some of that could come through some of the people that we do know that are business owners, and they have what they call like a Pottstown contractors group, in which a lot of those contractors who still don't work, that I do have a relationship with, will be, talking to them, and, they'll offer, to help them out in some of the things that they're doing. So we really try to make it a real big community effort for, from the different people that we know who do work for the independent contractors. And then we can have them offer their services, to help them. And that it's a way of reciprocation, and also for them that make money on the side doing this.
Okay. I've never heard of a punch down group. So you're saying it's out of work contractors. So you're saying there's a group for out of work contractors to get some sort of money. Who spearheads the group?
Well, they're not out of work contractors. It's a group of contractors. And I have relationships with many of those contractors. So when they have different jobs, and we stay in contact because they actually do work for me also. Yeah. So I would tell them, I have a guy here that does painting. What do you have going up on the horizon? Okay. And they say, oh, well, I'll need a hand. So, if you tell him to meet me here, or I'll pick him up, and, they'll have a day's work.
Okay. All right. So you're saying that definitely part of the solution was like you would probably give them a call to see what work they may have, if any. Right.
Aside from any work that we might have going on.
Right. Because you employ them periodically yourself.
Yes.
Okay. That's cool. So a source of maybe some possible cash jobs or temporary jobs or one-day jobs. What else sort of came out? Was there anything else that came out? Because it sounds like a lot of community.
Well, I mean, like I said,
oh, that's cool.
Yeah, like I
Food,
said,
money.
in our conversations, we always talking about improving our condition.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm from a point of you know always being determined to do more, motivated, and always see what's out there. So on some Saturdays, we'll sit down at that particular time at the library, or I'll come to the house and we sit down and we do resumes.
Oh,
We go,
wow.
we sit down and talk about different job searches or changing of careers. So um, all of this is just to motivate them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To not be satisfied where you at, but let's see what's else out there for you.
Wow. And that's a lot of, like I said, leadership, a lot of work on your part, but like, it's worth it to see the growth, isn't it? Especially when you find people who are willing to listen and do the work for it with you. You know what I mean?
Right. It has, I call it a social experiment.
It is. It
Just to,
absolutely is.
right, to see if that can, if that can work.
And be
And
scalable, right?
right,
Like this is how
right,
you can talk to someone holding a sign.
right.
Um,
Definitely.
you know what I mean? And if
Mm-hmm.
it does work, you can start promoting this.
Right.
Or
And
just using
that's
it
the
as a
plan.
model for other people who do
Right.
care. There's a lot of people who do have an urge to help people who are homeless.
True.
Huge. Like not everyone has that gene, but I meet people who do. And when they do
Right.
this, they're like, Lisa, I'm all about, like, I was sort of about like keeping it low, keeping it affordable, but keeping it nice for working class families, right? But
True.
other people definitely have a very strong, I want to help the homeless. It's like inside of them. It's like their purpose.
Right.
It's like part of the reason they came to Earth was like to fulfill that. And it's really strong in them.
Right.
So
I
cover it
think
with different ways. What's that?
change, we also move from a human perspective.
Yes.
And sometimes it's hard because so many things is going on in your life.
Yeah.
You're thinking about,
Money.
I got to take care of me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I do.
But I do believe that, giving yourself to others,
Yeah.
is the greatest part of enrichment,
Yes.
to yourself and your community.
Oh, it has to be about others. It has to be about others.
Right.
That's what we're here for, to lift other people up. That's a mandate.
Exactly.
And some people are ignoring it because we're so caught up in the 9 to 5. But when I talk to people in my strategy session calls, I ask them, okay, say we get the $5,000, $10,000 a month. What do you do? And that's when that true light really comes forward. That's when they're like, oh, I would help the homeless. There's kids that don't eat. There's kids with no shoes. There's, there's mothers who don't think they can make it. And I want to show them that they can. There's, and there's all these things that come out. And their purpose, when they get the financial freedom, their goal is all about lifting other people up. And so that's what we're trying to do. And I love that you're doing it through your mechanism, because if you find a solid way to do this, which takes time and effort on you as a landlord's part, but some of you guys have that time.
True.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not my thing, but it's yours, and you're more than happy to do it, dedicate to it, and see the results of your labor. Do you know what I mean? So it's good to have a model, and that's why I didn't know it was this deep. I just know you were saying things that I was like, okay.
Right. Yeah, a couple of people reached out to me. I wasn't able to get back to them right away.
Yeah.
It's like, they really want the format and like the platform, and so I will get back to them, you know what I mean? But it's it's some luck to it, because to me it can't all be about money.
Mm-hmm.
I think money will actually grow out of it.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing that you're going to change people's lives that at one moment they felt their lives was not even worth it.
True.
And now what they're doing, they're employed, they're happy.
Expanding. They're expanding themselves. They're not closing down anymore.
Yes, they're re-engaging with their family. I think that's most important to me. That's what brings me joy, and to be able to do something like that.
Awesome. Yeah. You're going to have to start blogging about it and talking about it if you can,
Oh, I
because
will.
being
We
a
will.
model of this there's a big sect within like the sub 30K community
Right.
who would love to hear how we can make this work. But, you know, having someone to do it and make a plan and how to go about starting it and how you finish it, like that's a beautiful thing.
Yes.
Possibly if you have the next 2 months at home, maybe you write a book about it.
I never wrote books before.
Listen. All right, I'm just gonna go into the book thing right now. It's passive income.
Yes.
It gets the word out. It shows leadership. It shows people a step-by-step method. And I'm actually writing my second book right now. There's this app called Rev, and you get Rev Recorder, R-E-V.
Okay.
And a Rev Recorder, you talk out, and then you have a human transcribe it for $1 a minute. So I have all of my chapters laid out for book number 2. And I pause it a bit because when you're thinking, you know, I talk and then I pause and I'm like, all right, that's what I'm going to say next. And then I say it and I'm like, pause. All right. And this goes next. Right. But I pick up my daughter and I have to drive on Thursdays and Sundays. I drive an hour out to Richmond, Virginia, pick her up and come back. And so for part of that trip, it's just me. So on the trip where it's just me for an hour and 15 minutes,
you can talk.
I do the audio book and I'm actually on like chapter 4. So I did like 13 chapters. So there's ways to do it where you can talk it out. Just write your outline and just understand you might pause. But if you get those moments where you have 40 minutes a week or 40 minutes twice a week where you're not doing something, or like during the coronavirus scare, every morning at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, you get like a chapter in, you can get this done and transcribed. Now, when I go over it, I have to smooth it out because the way you talk isn't the way you write. So I have to smooth it out, you know, I'm like, oh, take this out, put in this, you know, but I'm like on chapter 3 in like a week. So that was just a side book. We're all about passive income, right? Yes. And if you have something important that people can use and model, again, the word leadership that can help change people's lives, it is upon you to make sure that's known for other people who need us to lead so they then have a map to follow so it's easier for them. It is our responsibility to get our words out. So I'm just going to, books are passive income, so are rental property, so it's right in alignment. So, and we're going to come into this place where we might be staying at home for the next 3 months. I'm getting my book done.
Let's hope not.
Let's hope not. Maybe
I need to move.
It's not, this social isolation is not fun because people are like, can I come over? And I'm like, no, yes, but I'm bored. We're not like going out in big groups, right? But it's just like, oh my goodness. I've been at home by myself for 10 days listening to coronavirus news. I need to talk to somebody, you know?
That's true.
Okay. So just, that was a side note of writing a book because you guys are out there in the audience. You love passive income. I'm telling you, the book has been an amazing source of passive income for me as well as getting the word out. And I've impacted so many more people because of it. So if you have something in you that is here to help people and you want to show people a way of doing things different that you think can transform or revolutionize our entire conversation or even the world. And I do think that. I didn't do this lightly, right? If you, just like you think what you're doing, if people caught on, can really revolutionize homelessness and getting them off the street, it could. Right? Mm-hmm. Like revolutionize, right? Yeah. Me too. Like what I'm talking about revolutionizing how we even look at working class communities of colors with pride, with you know what I mean? Like just a different conversation. And I think that would make big social changes. And so if any of you guys are in the audience and you're listening to this and you have something like that in you, it is upon you to like get that out into the world. That is what you're here for. Don't stop sitting on it. Especially when you're like, oh, I know this can change the conversation because they just don't know how to do this. So FYI, I would say I'd love for you to write a book about it, but it would also help your pocketbook. You know, it could be profit and helpful at the same time. All right. You don't have to give away you don't have to donate your proceeds to charity. You can if you want, but you don't have to. It can be a legitimate source of income.
Yeah. You know? I already published a couple books. So when I finish it, I'll send it to you.
Oh, okay. Well, at the end, you can talk about your books if you want people to be able to find you. Okay. So that's the community. So Osei was already sort of deeply involved. He got together. And so it wasn't too much of an extension to be like, hey, how are we going to handle this? And people started just going, we have this resources, then we have this resources. And this shows like we need to come together as a community. another side note, you know, I just have to get this out. It was so funny. I was on Twitter and someone said, if you're not financially ready, don't have kids. And I was like, can we change that conversation? Because I was born in poverty. We didn't have money, but we had community. We got our clothes from the thrift store for like $2. Okay. So we were fed, we ate, but we were able to ask our neighbors for help or get a babysitter down the street. You know what I mean? So
that's true. That's how we live.
I mean? It wasn't about poverty. It was about community.
Community.
And I'm like, instead of saying don't have the poverty, let's say, let's make sure we strengthen if we can and grow and mature so we have good family bonds. It's not easy, but I know if we have them, you know, having a kid when you're, you know, in poverty doesn't mean a death sentence or unhappiness, right? It means that we just sort of shifted it from thinking we need money to be successful to we need each other. And I think that what you just showed was, look, as soon as you said we're a group and we're in this together, everyone just came forward with like, we have 4 different places we can get food. We have these different places where we can work. We have this many places what we can do for each other. And you're all in it together to make sure you guys get through it. And that's like the power of being people community centered, like you said, and it's proof. And it's something that we need to start changing this conversation. We don't necessarily need a ton of money. It's just, I really truly believe that. I was poor and happy. There's a lot of folks out there who was, right? You didn't have money, but you had family and community and neighbors who took care of you. And you know what I mean? And anyone can get $1 Duncan Hines cake and, you know, frosting, and you have a fun birthday party. Like it didn't cost more than $15, right? You know what I mean? Like it wasn't about the money. So yeah. I just want to put that in comparison. So love that you do that and you're implementing everything we say we want, but you're actually doing it.
Right. Well, thank you for having me. I'm glad you invited me.
I did. So let's just do one more thing. And then at the end, we could tell me about the books that you have if you like to, you know, let people know what you've written. But shared housing. So that sort of started, it sounds like with you, with your like being open to people who are homeless. So were all of them previously homeless who are in your housing?
Yeah, three of the 4 were all homeless.
And the fourth?
The fourth, he's a long-term friend, so he always, you know, had a place to stay no matter what.
Yeah.
But I actually brought him up just to change the environment from Philadelphia to a more quiet environment, and at that particular time, that's what he needed.
Right. Sometimes you have a lot going on in your life. Just getting away can help you get the fresh start you need so you can get away from the things that kept pulling you back if you're trying to move forward, right? So, all right. And so they all have different leases.
Right. Each lease is individualized.
You know, I remember I was in DC. You'll find places in big cities where it's like individual leases. I actually thought it was pretty cool because you're not friends. You are roommates. There's almost like this understanding of being chill with people because they're not your friends. You don't know them. So I don't know. I just found like when I was looking into it, there was a level of, I didn't have to meet everyone in the house. I just met the girl who had a room who was available. I saw the other people, and it was like, it wasn't necessarily about being friends, which actually makes it just about, hey, keep your place clean, work, do what you need to do, but like, don't be hanging around. Like, this isn't a place to not be uncomfortable, but it was like very much like, I don't know. How do you describe it? It's like, just get in here, do what you need to do, and get out. Like, don't get involved in drama. There's this separation of it because you don't know them.
The good thing was everybody have different working hours, so majority of the time, they always find themselves, you know, basically at the house by themselves.
Right. Oh, that's almost perfect.
So so you have a couple on night shifts, you have a couple, and you have one on mid shift, and then you have another one in morning shift. So basically, they, you know, maybe on a weekend, they would share the house for a couple of hours.
So when you introduce them, do you even introduce them to the others, or do they just show up and like?
Oh, definitely, because
Tell me about that aspect of integration.
Yeah, everybody meets everybody. You do the introductions, and you know, basically get a chance to talk and know each other slowly. You know, it's not really forced, but the introduction is made, and then talk a little bit about, each other, and then basically they get to learn. Like, two of them found like they love fishing, so, on a Saturday they went down to the river that's in Pottstown and found a fishing spot, and that's all they talk about is fishing all week.
Oh, don't get my ex involved in that conversation.
Yeah.
Zone out.
Yeah.
All right. And so, so there is an introduction. They do get to meet. And at the end, does everyone say, is this person okay?
They find they find out, it's not, like I said, doing that introduction, getting to know each other, it's it's a process. Because when you meet people, you always find something that make you go, and then if there's an issue, then anybody can call a house meeting, and talk through the issues as adults.
So, tell me about the process. So you say it's first an introduction. They talk. Do they leave and then everybody come together and discuss what they thought?
No. No, it's very organic.
Oh, okay. So you just let it live. Like if it's a good connection, you'll let that connection come through. If it's not a good connection, the conversation will falter off.
Right.
And, that's that. Like you don't get that. Sometimes you get a resounding, everyone's like, oh yeah, this is good. Come on in. And then other times you're like, you don't get that resounding yes. Okay.
Right.
That is community centered. Yeah.
Yeah. They, like if there's an issue in the house, anybody can call a meeting to talk about it. Maybe somebody left dishes and don't clean up after themselves in the kitchen or something.
Gosh, I mean, I know y'all like me, but that would be me. I'm like, oh, can we get a maid?
Yeah, nah.
I'll pay. I'll
to
pay. I'm like, doing dishes. Can we get a dishwasher? I'll get it.
Right.
And if it doesn't, and so is it month to month? So if there is an issue that the roommate, you can't live with them. Right. You're like, all right, 30 days.
Right. It's month to month. It's 7 days.
Oh, month to month?
Yeah.
You said 7 days?
Right. If it came to a point that we basically decided that they are not a fit or they're doing things that is problematic. Yeah, in that county, you can break that. You can break it. You have to give them notice.
Yeah.
Notice for 15 days, and then it's 7 days after that about.
So, how many times has that worst case scenario happened versus because
none?
Right, because it sounds like because you let them breathe and just get it out.
None.
Like everyone naturally so in a conversation, you sort of just click or you don't, right?
Yeah.
So since you let it just sort of naturally go, if they click, you go. And so I guess because of that, you tend to have like a really good outcome because you're not forcing it. You're like
right. They have very good outcomes. They have pretty good relationships, and basically, if it's an issue, they handle it as a group.
Are you there during some of these house meetings? Do they tell you there's a house meeting?
Not many times. I let them handle that. I don't have to oversee it. I would tell them, they'll tell me something, and I'll say, well, just have a house meeting. Tell me how it goes when it's done.
And before we end, you said you took a risk, but what was it that made you reach out to this guy and not be worried that
just conversations.
Okay.
Conversations. Before that happened, I learned his whole life story. And we kept on talking, and we started talking about, best case scenario for you. What would you, want to do?
So I'm talking about the very beginning when you said, do you want a job?
Yeah.
Because he was just done a quarter. You didn't have time to have like a full conversation, did you?
No, but as he was cleaning out the house, I was helping him clean out the house. We was filling up trucks.
Yeah.
When you work close by and work close with someone, conversations come up.
Yep.
And then, folks start revealing a whole lot of things about themselves, even his fears,
So the other two that were homeless and did this, was it the same thing? There's some level of you were working with them first before you invited them
Yes.
to the house?
Yes.
And
Yep.
would you say that's the big part of it? Like getting
Yes.
to know them before offering them the house, which is different than just giving it to them. Like, no,
Right.
I worked with
Right.
them first.
Yeah.
They have to
Working
work
with
with
them,
me. I
getting
get a
to
good
know,
feel.
right, and having good, strong conversations with them, and really, really to get to see where, where they see themselves and what sacrifices they will make to go off and make sure they're successful. Are they up for it?
So you're you're doing work where it is physical. You can come and just you're doing work with them, right? Cleaning up houses and whatnot as an investor. So say you're not
Right.
having that type of work. But they heard that you did this and liked the model. What would you say for someone who say works a full-time job, but they want to get into group housing, but with homeless specifically, they don't so just make how would you say they can go about getting to know that person before offering them the home? Just throwing things ideas.
I think you may want to have maybe a 3-step process or 2-step process.
Okay.
One is interviewing them. Second is really getting to know their particular background and having those conversations with them. You yourself have to be comfortable with the person that you're trying to help.
That is true. And I think
know.
sometimes we bypass that where we
Right.
just want to help, but we're not always a good fit for some people.
Right.
We just don't click. We're not in alignment.
Right. And I think you also have to give them different different actions.
Like what?
Different actions to complete. I mean,
to see if they have the
right,
ethic and the desire, the hunger to actually.
I would send them not from a point of getting a job, but I would send them out first to start, filling out either different applications or the same thing like I do. Meet me at the library. Are you gonna be on time? You know what I mean? We're gonna sit down and maybe you don't have your Social Security card. Meet me at the Social Security office so we can go off and fill these things out.
Oh wow!
Okay. Give them action things to do.
I love this.
Just
You're
to
making
see,
this
right? You see where their integrity and see how, if they are people that can follow through.
And want to follow through, or it's a want and a willing, right? It's a can, want, and willing. Because some people can, they just don't want to put the effort in at that moment for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And you don't want to talk to someone who says they want it, but they're really not into putting in the effort, because then it's like, I'm spending a lot of energy on you for this.
Right.
And what I like is that you're making it very accessible and methodical way for people to do this, but very smart and strategically.
Right. And then you gotta look at a point for blockage. What is the blockage in their life? So blockage in their life that they can be a substance abuser. They could be, they could do alcohol, but they still operating. You'll see them walking around. So what's their blockage? And you ask them, well, what you gonna do about your blockage? Because you can't move forward without that. And then there's where you get those resources at. You know what I mean? So you're digging deep in other people's lives to help them. And sometimes that's what you have to do. Like for the guy that was holding the sign, he had a blockage, but giving him the resources, and moving him away from where his comfortability was, which was in Reading, and bringing him out to a whole another township. You know what I mean? He had less access to the things that was used to block him from
either
succeeding.
the people who were pulling him back, or the environment that was pulling him back.
Or his own decision. So what happened is he got sick, and while he was in the hospital, there was an organization that actually dealt with some of the issues and problems that he had, and his girlfriend talked to one of the ladies, and they signed him up for counseling and everything. And all of that was free. And
right.
and through that, he had a larger support system.
Right.
And the bigger that support system from those resources that was right there allowed him to actually be able to take a step forward on his own and, be proud of himself. Even the job he was working said, listen, we're going to stand by you until till you can get back here and do what you need to do. And before you know it, every day, I see him, he'll tap me on my back and say, yo, thank you for giving me a chance to change my life.
Wow. And when you had this first conversation, did you know this is what you wanted to do? You're like, I want to see if I can work with this guy. And did you have that other thought? And if he works right, like offering him housing, was that always in your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts was to open up a veterans home or a home for homeless juveniles.
Yes.
That's where it started. But I had a lady, her name is Miss Garcia, told me one day, she said, I had a dream and you was in my dream. And I said, oh, okay. She said, yes. She said, I see you shaking hands with a lot of people who had troubles in their past and they're thanking you. And that is what you want to do.
That's it. You got to listen to these dreams. This is
this is what she experience. This is what she said to me. And I think that to me, that particular interaction turned into something that she prophesied. And I went with it as truth.
Exactly, because it made sense to you. You already wanted to do it, right? Her just saying it was like, I do want to. I do.
It was interesting.
Awesome. And so you always had that thing. So we're gonna draw this to a close because we've been talking for some time. But I always like to say this, people, you think I'm saying this and you think I'm overblowing it, but when I say I have some leaders, I have people who are going to change the game for not just me and themselves, but for others. Like, we have amazing people and we're changing this conversation. We're going to do business different. We're going to be human-centric. Right. And you know what? The world need our voices, okay? They need our solutions. They need the sub 30K mastermind solutions because we're not coming from it from a pure capitalistic point. It is capitalism, but there's definitely some level of being human-centric and community-centric. And when you cover that, sort of bringing other people along with what you're trying to be profitable with, every time you do that, you're being a leader. You're showing leadership that people can follow, but you're also leading the charge for like making the world a better place, but like in an easy to follow manner, and that's what we're here to do, making easy for us to like live in our light and do some good, right? So thank you so much, Jose, for coming. I hope everyone enjoyed that. Tell us about any of the books that you've had in the past or any that you might be making in the future, or how people might be able to contact you, because you might have a lot of people who would like to go, that sounds great. Can you tell me more?
Yeah, I could be contacted. The easiest way is on Facebook.
Okay.
Either on Facebook with James Edward Realty.
Okay.
Or just my whole name, Oseyunwisi Nadir Karume.
Okay, I'll write this in the show notes so people.
Yeah, put that in the show notes, and they can definitely get with me, and we could talk about real estate and shared housing.
Yes. And books, previous or future?
My first book was Reflections of a Black Man's Mind.
Beautiful.
And this particular book is, you can actually get the book on, I can't remember the website now, but you can just hit me up and I'll
just give me the information, definitely.
Get the information for you for the book. So, but other than that, I appreciate it. Thank you.
And please, that book on shared housing. Come on, man.
I can get that done in maybe 30.
You can.
30 to 45 days.
You can. Like tomorrow, I'm gonna work on chapter 4 and 5, and then this is you can do this. I was thinking, this is like a side note. I was thinking of doing a little book group Like, who has a book in there? All right, let's do this every week with like this audio thing. You know, I'll post it and be like, all right, guys, let's do it every week. We want you to do like an hour, even if it's just the audio, you know what I mean, version of it, but just getting it done. And it's $1. So I think like chapter 2 is like $13. Like, come on. I'm gonna get this whole thing written, and it's a human who transcribes it. So I'll give us information. I'll also start that in the Facebook group and see who wants to join. So many initiatives that we have going on right now.
Let me know.
Okay, we'll do. So with that, I'll say bye. Thank you for coming on and sharing your light. Thank you. And with that, goodbye, everybody.
All right. Everybody on the block, you will see them bringing food, cake to your house. You know, it's like, oh, you short on food? Don't worry about it. And they start making that phone. They have that phone ring. And next thing you know, we got macaroni and cheese coming to the house. You know what I mean? And my mom be like, no, we'll be okay. No, you take it. This will help you and fill you and the kids' belly for the week.
Right. You didn't have to do an online thing. It was just like you told someone things are short. And it's just like, it's not about the money. You know what I mean? It's about the community. And we need, and I'm going to keep saying that until people get it. Like, they know it. But I've never been someone who's about, like, I like money, don't get me wrong, but it's not everything. It never has been everything. It's a part of other things that we're also benefiting. And when you take that approach to business, you're always doing good for everyone. You're impacting people. And that's what I always try to get across to people, you know, in investing. Like, we can do so much more than just make money.
I know. Well, I'm going to tell you, from the time I seen y'all two, I was totally impressed. And I followed and awesome. You know, it's like it's always something new, and I watched you grow. Awesome. I watched you grow, and believe me, not even knowing you, I'm so proud of you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I'm so proud of you because I watched you just grow and talk about it. And you know, it's good when you are able to share and give others. You know what I mean? Nourish their mind, you know, nourish their mind.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And that's what people, you know, I don't know, we have a society, you know, I talked to my son, you know, even last night, just about, you know, being financially literate and, you know, how he uses his, you know, his money or not saving his money. I say, yo, it's important to, you know, he has to sit down with me every Sunday now. You know, to spend an hour just talking about futuring.
I like that. I like futuring. I like that.
Futuring, making good decisions. Yeah, I mean, it's so important because there's so many people who parents, you know, move on and, you know, they either inherit their parents' stuff and in 2 years they have nothing.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
they just didn't know what to do.
They didn't, or they just didn't want to listen.
Or I got a lot of people in my family don't listen.
Yeah, so I just told them, I said, yo, we have to sit down, you know, and even if you don't get it now, later on, it's going to click for you.
It will. The introduction to it, because we weren't introduced, so it was so new to us. But if at the age of 4, I'm like, my mommy owns properties, that's a different child.
Ain't it?
That is growing up. She's in a different hemisphere, in a level of awareness and goal orientation, just from the introduction. You know, so I have a friend who's doing commercial real estate, and he just texted me and he's like, oh, I have an idea. I want to bring, like, you know, elementary school kids to show them about, like, commercial development and them to see this, you know, and I'm like, just introducing it to him, like, this is something you can do too. He's like, I can? Yeah, you can. Sometimes it's just the introduction. But with that, I'll let you go for real this time. But
oh no problem. It was, you know, it was perfect. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was perfect. I think it was perfect from a point of just getting the information out of you know what we're trying to do, and plus we real people. You know what I mean? We're not just talking. We're real. We're not inviting you.
We're very strong. If there's no word, if there's any word to describe me, there's a lot. Okay, some positive, some negative, because I'm not always on point. It's strong, and so if there's something we feel, probably you too, that we need to do, even if I'm uncomfortable at first, even if it can be scary, we're going to do it. Period. I don't care if I'm scared. I'm still going to do it. because
Yep.
I feel that this is the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a term for that. It's called spiritual warrior. And we're just looking for people who are brave. And I'm going to say this not lightly, like if I know that there's something to be done, if I was around during the civil rights movement and we were protesting and I knew dogs would be sick after me, I would have still done it. Like I'm one of those people, you know what I mean? Like not everyone can do that, right? Like it's scary, but like I know I'm the person that's like, no, if this is what needs to be done for that higher purpose, we're going to do that. And not everyone has that level of just like willing to take even the negative to get to the positive. But when enough of us get on the same page though, I mean, spiritually, like you just can't dim our light. And that light is what this world needs and wants and appreciates right now, you know, and that's why we shine through, because we keep expressing that even though a lot of negativity or we can be scared or something can go wrong. But with our conviction that this is ultimately going to end up in the right place, it carries us through, you know, and I don't say that lightly. I'm a very soul-oriented person. I'm always looking at like, what's your purpose? What are you here to do? And how does that impact and bring others up? And when you start putting things in that light, the conversation is just a lot more fun to have. You know? So
Definitely.
I'll let you go with that. Have a good night, Nadine.
But I'm gonna tell you, it's an honor actually speaking with you, man. I've been watching you for years, and actually have direct contact with you is decent. You know, it's decent. So you're doing things right.
Good. Good.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. Because I know I'm not perfect. And I tell you guys I'm not perfect. So you don't hold it against me too bad because I told you up front. But it's nice to know that like you get past that and just listen to my words, because I do truly do and think and know in my heart that we can do what's best for our communities. I truly believe there's nothing stopping us, except we just need to take the time to do it. And
That's
so
true.
I'm really happy that people are willing to listen past any of my flaws. Sometimes I'm angry and I argue too much. I'm a little rude, and I own it. I'm not trying to modify it at this point. Like I own it, but it's not always like the perfect thing. But I truly, truly know that we can be happy on this planet. And I'm doing it through my way. You're doing it through yours, you know, but all these pieces add up to us all like collectively going higher than we were. And that's, I'm going to say it again, that's our purpose here. We are here for a purpose, not to work for IBM for 20 years.
True.
I mean, which is cool, but that's not what you're here for. You know? It just isn't. You know what I mean? Not unless IBM's lifting everybody up, okay? So yeah, I'll let you go and have a wonderful day.
Okay, stay in touch though.
I will.
All right. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Okay. So a story that me and I was talking about with him is that it's not about money, it's about community. And I just read a story about these two single mothers who live together and how all of a sudden, not only did their bills cut in half, right, which saved them more money, but they had a babysitter, so they didn't have to pay extra for that. They were working together. They both understood each other's struggles. And all of a sudden, it wasn't about how much money you had. They had what they could save. They could spend less. They had a babysitter. They were on point. The kids could play with each other, right? And so it's not always about money. It's about community. And I'm going to keep saying that because even when I do my investing, it's not just about how much money I can make. It's how much community we can impact and bring together while I also make a profit, right? But it's both. It's not one or the other. And I've never been about that. And I make it extremely clear. But when you do it this way, it feels better. It feels better to you. It feels better to me. It feels better to the people who are doing business with you, which are your tenants. Okay? So let's start saying that. It's not about having kids in poverty. It's about strengthening our relationships. When you need food and you tell somebody, all your neighbors come over and they bring something to help you and the kids out. So let's talk about how we strengthen that. You know, and it's not always easy, right? I only know half of my neighbors, but I'm just saying, let's start with that thought. And as that thought becomes cemented, there's going to be little actions we all start taking to bridge that gap and become a community. As an investors, as people living in a group house, as someone who wants to build a whole bunch of investors and help them build group houses, you know, and make those communities, but we can do this together. And it's not always about how many dollars you have in your pocket, about what will carry us through. So in this crazy time of coronavirus, you guys, we can do this. Let's think when we can, community, I was at the store the other day and someone was standing a little too close, and my first instinct was like, well, you get social distancing, okay? You're a little too close. And then I stopped myself. I was like, community, Lisa, because I'm naturally a little bit of a fighter. So if you're standing too close, I'm assuming you knew it and you did it on purpose to be rude versus like you had no idea. The reality is she had no idea, right? And I can politely say, oh, excuse me, I'm trying to practice community distance. Do you mind like just sort of give me some space? Is a better alternative, right? So it's just something to think about, and I have to struggle with myself. But we can do this, people. We're gonna do this, people, and just stay, strong and faithful in your light, and we're gonna do fine. Don't be pulled into the nonsense of hysteria, pulled into the nonsense of what can I do to make this better for everyone. As we're speaking, I'm making like community signs that say protection and healing for my city, and I'm gonna put it out. So what does that do? That lets people know that I'm praying for everyone, but every time they see it, they are emphasizing in their head, yeah, say a prayer for protection and healing for my city. So I want everyone who walks by my house to have that imprinted and program that into their mind and subconscious versus the fear. So we all can do little things to sort of bridge the gap. But I'm also saying, I care about the people, right? And that's a sign that I put in front of my house during this coronavirus scare. So it's like, what sign can you put out? Or what little thing can you do, thinking community, to help calm the fears and rewrite what the story is going to be for people? All right, with that, I'll really log off. Thank you.